So, in the early 1980s, while I was in high school, I was into electronics and computers, amateur radio, and I played a lot of advanced Dungeons and Dragons. You could say I was a nerd. And playing Dungeons and Dragons brings back so many wonderful memories. I don't play anymore, but man, those summers in the early 80s, people would come over to the house. We'd have these marathon sessions. Such good friends and good memories. Well, at that time, a company called DB Enterprises came out with this electronic dice wand called the DragonBone. And it was so cool. I mean, it supported all the dice. And there was a little bit of controversy around it. Some dungeon masters wouldn't use it or didn't want you to use it because it wasn't truly random. And that's true. Deterministic systems aren't typically truly random. And we'll talk more about that in detail in just a few moments. What I have actually done, and what this video series is about, is the new DragonBone Quantum, which is a true random number generator. So let's head over to the bench and we'll talk about what's been designed. I'll go through all the design documents, the source code, how it works, everything. And this will be an open source version of the DragonBone. All right, this is the DragonBone Quantum. I've 3D printed and painted this one. You know, the paint job's not as good as you'll probably do, but it works. I'll share all those files with you so you can 3D print a case. I've designed the circuit board. I've also got a prototype board I can show you, but these can be manufactured, and you can put your components on them. We'll go through all that. Really what I'm wanting to do now is just show you what this thing is, so you can decide if you want to watch the other videos in the series. So, one of the big problems with the original DragonBone was that it was pseudo-random. Pseudo-random simply means that it's generating its random numbers through some kind of deterministic system, like timing. In fact, I think that's what it used. It had, I think, a couple NAND gates, and it would spin around some bits, and then when you press the button, that's the number that you would get. And what I wanted to do was remake the DragonBone, but I wanted it to use real random numbers, quantum random numbers. So, let me explain to you how it works. When you turn it on, first thing it does is it creates a soft access point, so that you can connect to it with your phone or tablet, whatever. And you can give it information about your local wireless network, the SID, the password. And you can also give it an API key to access a website which can generate quantum vacuum numbers. We'll go over that website in some detail. Once you provide that, it can actually it generates a cache. It'll go out, get a whole bunch of these numbers, 512 of them, and then use that as the seed. Now, if you don't provide that, it still works. It's just that what it does is it uses noise on one of the, on the analog pin. So let's talk about the microprocessor real quick. I'm using a 9-volt battery, but the microprocessor is actually here. I designed it so you could access the microcontroller. This is a ESP8266D1 Mini, and if you look, this is obviously the PCB board, and it's designed so that when you put it in here, that you can actually get access to this. So you can update the software. Everything is open source with this. You can go make one, and you can also change it. So the way it works is, now that it's been turned on, it's actually, if you notice, it's snoring. That's because it hasn't been used yet. So it goes into this low power mode to save the batteries. If we press select, you'll see that we're on dice 6 now. If we press and hold either button, like we press and hold select, it shows you what you're on. If you press quickly though, it goes to the next number. So we'll choose 100. That's 12. That's 20. I've got a 30-sided dice on it, and then you've got a 100-sided dice. Hopefully you can see the LEDs. If you press roll, it goes off and rolls. That's 44. Press it again, 25. Press and hold, it'll show you the last number that it rolled. Press and hold both, roll and select at the same time. It does a system reset and clears its Wi-Fi information. So everything that's stored in memory gets wiped, basically. So you start fresh. So that's basically the entire thing. It's generating random numbers using numbers that came from the quantum vacuum. So it's truly random. If it can't connect to those, it's using noise on a pen, so it's a pseudo random, if you will. We'll talk about the libraries and everything, but that's what this entire project is about. It's about recreating the DragonBone from the 80s, making it better in terms of its randomness, and giving you something kind of retro and cool to play around with. All right, so stay tuned. We'll go back and we'll take a look at the design, the casing design in this episode, and then in a future episode we'll look at the source code and the circuitry. So before we go too far, I want to make a comment about the quantum numbers and the quantum vacuum. It's true. That is how this DragonBone quantum works. The Australian National University has this web page where they generate quantum random numbers. And forgive me if I want to read this, but it basically states that the random numbers are generated in real time in our lab by measuring quantum fluctuations of the vacuum. The vacuum is described very differently in quantum physics and classical physics. In classical physics, a vacuum is considered as a space that is empty, devoid of matter or photons. Quantum physics, however, says that same space resembles a sea of virtual particles continuously appearing and disappearing. This is a prediction of quantum mechanics that can be measured and even sometimes utilized, such as in this service. By carefully measuring these quantum vacuum fluctuations, we're able to generate ultra-high bandwidth random numbers. So anyway, there's plenty of information for you to read if you're interested. But that is what the DragonBone, that is one of the methods that the DragonBone can use for generating your electronic dice rolls. So I created the case in Autodesk Fusion 360. I actually used the free non-commercial, the hobbyist version, if you will. It works great. There's a couple key pieces to this case. It's not rocket science. Just quickly, it's got an end cap, 2 end caps on it. I split it so I could print it. Let's take off one of the end caps and we'll see that there's a wall on the inside. That's the battery wall. So if you put the battery in, you'll see that that wall is in there to keep it from sliding. The top is actually 2 pieces, 2 top pieces. You have this top text template, which I created. You can print it in multiple colors. I thought it was kind of a cool idea. It also helped solve a problem with the buttons. I needed the buttons to be able to be captured in place but clickable. So what we have here is these circles are slightly smaller than the circles below it, and the circles below it are right over, let's turn on the PCB, the buttons. So there's the buttons that are on the PCB. So let's turn off that. Let's turn off the top case. You can see that the PCB, it basically sets on this platform here. It has holes to screw it onto the case. I think I'm using like M3s. If we turn off the PCB, you'll see that there is some openings in the case for things like, this is where the on-off switch goes. It's actually mounted under the PCB, and then there's a switch, let's see, on-off switch right here that fits into here and connects to the button so you can slide it up and down. This is because of some legs for a diode that's to eliminate the reverse connection of the battery. There's some protection. And then this pocket here is because if we turn on the PCB, the actual wires that hook the battery connector to the board need a place to go that's underneath that can slide up inside. So that's what that does. So that's, I mean, pretty much the whole thing. If I was going to change anything, it would require, changing the battery system to maybe a LiPo to make it chargeable, which would diminish the size of the case significantly. As you can see, I mean, the battery really does take up a lot of space. Let me turn off that. So you think, hey, there's a lot of wasted space, but when you actually turn on the PCB, you see that the PCB actually extends. This is the PCB, and this is the ESP8266, which is mounted underneath it. And it's mounted underneath it so that you can actually get access to the USB. You can open this end cap up, plug in the USB, pull up the Arduino IDE, and change the code if you want. So anyway, that's kind of the factor. This battery is a significant factor in terms of the design. If you went with a LiPo or something, you could certainly make the case a lot smaller. Even sticking with the current battery, if you wanted to take off, let's see here, the top cap, you see that there's a lot of hollow space. You might be able to design it in such a way as like a remote, where the part that's in the palm of the hand is actually larger, and then it slopes up and becomes smaller as it goes up. That's an option. The other idea I had is you could actually put your Dungeons and Dragons dice or something into this section. They might fit depending on the size of the dice, and then change this end cap here, this top cap, so that it just snaps on, snaps off kind of thing. Anyway, that's how this was done. Hopefully you're enjoying this. There'll be 2 more videos coming, one on the schematic and putting the PCB together, and one on the source code. So learn something new every day. Take it easy, guys.